My beloved child, slow down for a moment and listen carefully. Before you move on to the next thought, before you return to the noise that has been pulling at your attention all day, I want you to stay here with me. There is a reason your eyes have found these words at this exact moment. There is a reason your heart paused, even if only for a second. And there is a reason something deep inside you feels as though this moment matters more than you can explain. You may think you arrived here by accident. You may believe this is just another ordinary part of your day. But I want you to know that some moments carry a deeper purpose than they first appear to have. Some moments are placed along your path with great care. Some moments are quiet invitations from heaven, waiting to be noticed. This is one of those moments. I know how busy your life has become. I know how many voices compete for your attention. I know how many responsibilities rest on your shoulders and how many thoughts move through your mind before you even realize they are there. The world has become loud around you. It has become crowded with demands, expectations, fears, distractions, and endless noise. Yet somehow, in the middle of all of that, you are here. Out of all the places you could be, out of all the things you could be focusing on, you are here. And I do not want you to dismiss that too quickly, because timing matters more than you realize. There have been moments when you asked for guidance and did not know where to find it. There have been nights when you carried questions that seemed too heavy to share with anyone. There have been silent prayers that escaped your lips when no one else was listening. There have been tears you tried to hide and burdens you tried to carry alone. You wondered if anyone noticed. You wondered if anyone truly understood. You wondered if heaven was silent. But my child, heaven was never silent. Even when you could not hear my voice, I was still near. Even when you could not see my hand, I was still working. Even when you felt forgotten, you remained deeply known and deeply loved. That is why I need you to pay attention right now. Not because I want to frighten you, not because I want to pressure you, but because there are moments when your soul recognizes something before your mind can explain it. There are moments when your spirit senses that something important is unfolding. Perhaps that is why you feel a quiet pull inside your heart even now. Perhaps that is why you cannot simply walk away without wondering why you stopped. Perhaps that is why these words feel strangely personal. The truth is that I have always known this moment would come. Long before this day arrived, I knew where you would be. I knew what you would be carrying. I knew the questions that would still be lingering in your heart. I knew the disappointments you would be trying to overcome. I knew the hopes you were afraid to speak out loud. And knowing all of that, I still drew near to you with love. Not because you earned it, not because you figured everything out, not because you became perfect, but because you are my beloved child. There is something beautiful that happens when you stop long enough to listen. The walls around your heart begin to soften. The noise begins to lose its power. The fear begins to loosen its grip. And in that quiet place, you begin to hear what has been there all along. You begin to hear the gentle reminder that you are not alone. You begin to hear the truth that your story is not forgotten. You begin to hear the whisper that says there is still hope ahead of you. My child, do not rush past this moment. Do not dismiss it as coincidence. Do not convince yourself that it means nothing. There are seasons when I reach for you in ways you do not expect. There are times when I place reminders of my presence directly in your path because I know exactly what your heart needs. And right now I want you to know this simple truth. You are here for a reason. Your timing is not random. Your presence in this moment is not meaningless. There is a purpose unfolding that you cannot fully see yet. There is a hidden message beneath the surface of your ordinary day. And as you stay here with me, as you allow your heart to become still, you will begin to discover that what looked like coincidence was actually an invitation. What felt ordinary was actually sacred. And what seemed like a simple moment was, in truth, a divine appointment prepared with love long before you arrived. And perhaps that is what has made this moment feel different from so many others. Deep inside your heart there is a weariness that words do not easily explain. Not the kind of tiredness that disappears after a good night of sleep. Not the kind that fades after a weekend of rest. This is a deeper exhaustion, a quiet exhaustion. The kind that settles into the corners of your soul after carrying too much for too long. My child, I see it. I see the hidden burden you have been carrying. I see the weight behind your smile. I see the strength you have tried so hard to maintain. And I see the silent struggle that few people truly understand. There have been days when you kept moving forward simply because you did not know what else to do. Days when responsibilities demanded your attention even while your heart felt empty. Days when you gave your energy to everyone around you while secretly wondering how much longer you could keep going. You have become so accustomed to carrying the weight that you hardly notice how heavy it has become. Yet your soul notices, your heart notices, the quiet places inside you notice. I know about the emotional fatigue that follows disappointment after disappointment. The kind that teaches a person to lower their expectations because hoping feels dangerous. I know about the silent sadness that appears when prayers seem unanswered and questions seem unresolved. I know about the moments when you looked around and wondered why everyone else appeared stronger, happier, more certain, while you were simply trying to make it through another day. My child, there are wounds that never became visible to the people around you. There are battles you fought in silence. There are fears you carried alone because you did not want to become a burden to someone else. There are tears that never fell because you trained yourself to stay composed. There are conversations you rehearsed in your mind but never spoke aloud. There are disappointments you buried so deeply that even you stopped talking about them. But buried pain does not disappear. Hidden pain does not stop existing simply because no one sees it. Sometimes it lingers quietly beneath the surface, draining your strength one day at a time. I know how difficult it has been. I know about the pressure you place on yourself, the pressure to stay strong, the pressure to keep believing, the pressure to keep showing up even when your heart feels tired, the pressure to hold everything together while secretly feeling as though pieces of you are falling apart. You have carried expectations that were never meant to define your worth. You have measured yourself against standards that left you feeling inadequate. You have replayed mistakes, questioned decisions, and wondered whether you could have done something differently. And over time, all of those thoughts have become a weight of their own. Perhaps the hardest part is that much of this struggle has happened where no one could see it. People saw your responsibilities. They saw your routines. They saw the version of you that continued moving forward, but they did not always see the heaviness you carried into the night. They did not always see the loneliness that sometimes appeared even in crowded rooms. They did not always see how often you felt emotionally drained from carrying concerns that never seemed to leave your mind. My beloved child, you have been carrying more than you admit, more than others realize, perhaps even more than you realize yourself. You have spent so much time surviving that you have forgotten what it feels like to simply rest inside your own heart. You have become accustomed to pushing through exhaustion, silencing your emotions, and convincing yourself that everything is fine when inside you feel worn down by the journey. But I want you to know something important. The pain you carry does not make you weak. The exhaustion you feel does not mean you have failed. The silent struggle you face does not mean you are forgotten. I see every hidden burden. I see every moment of emotional fatigue. I see every private battle. I see every unspoken ache. And even now, as you sit with these words, you do not have to pretend that everything is fine. You do not have to hide the weight. You do not have to explain away the weariness. Because I already know, I have always known, and I have never looked away. And after carrying that weight for so long, something else began to happen quietly inside your heart. Not all at once, not in a single moment, but little by little, through disappointments, unanswered questions, difficult seasons, and silent struggles, certain thoughts began to take root. At first they seemed harmless. They sounded like simple observations. They sounded like conclusions drawn from pain. But over time, those thoughts became beliefs. And those beliefs began shaping the way you saw yourself, the way you saw your future, and even the way you saw me. My beloved child, there are lies that often hide beneath exhaustion. There are false beliefs that grow strongest when a heart becomes tired. And one of the first lies you started believing was this: you are forgotten. Perhaps you never said those exact words aloud. Perhaps you never admitted them to anyone. But deep inside, there were moments when you wondered why life felt so heavy if you were truly seen. There were moments when you looked at your circumstances and quietly asked yourself whether anyone noticed your struggle. There were moments when you felt invisible. Not because people hated you, not because everyone abandoned you, but because your pain seemed to go unnoticed. And when pain remains hidden for too long, the mind begins creating explanations. The heart begins filling in the silence. The enemy of peace whispers, "You are forgotten." And after hearing it enough times, you begin to wonder if it might be true. Another lie slowly found its way into your thoughts. It sounded like this: you are not enough, not talented enough, not strong enough, not successful enough, not faithful enough, not worthy enough. You compared your journey to others. You compared your progress to theirs. You compared your weaknesses to their strengths. And every comparison seemed to confirm the same painful conclusion. You felt as though you were falling behind. You felt as though everyone else had something you lacked. And eventually, self-doubt began speaking louder than truth. My child, self-doubt has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. It tells you it is protecting you from disappointment. It tells you it is keeping you realistic. But often it simply keeps you trapped. It convinces you to question gifts you already possess. It convinces you to overlook the strength you have already shown. It convinces you to focus on every flaw while ignoring every sign of growth. Then there was another lie, one that hid beneath fear. A lie that said nothing will ever change. Perhaps you know that feeling. The feeling of facing another day with the same burdens. The feeling of carrying the same concerns month after month. The feeling of wondering whether hope is simply setting yourself up for disappointment again. Fear loves to speak in absolutes. Fear says always. Fear says never. Fear says nothing will improve. Fear says you will always feel this way. Fear says your story has already been decided. But fear is a poor storyteller, my child. Fear cannot see what I see. Fear cannot see beyond the present moment. Fear cannot see the work that is happening beneath the surface. Yet when fear speaks long enough, it begins sounding familiar. And familiar voices often become trusted voices. That is why these false beliefs feel so convincing. They have been repeated for so long. They have traveled with you through difficult seasons. They have sat beside you during lonely nights. They have followed you into new opportunities and whispered old doubts. They have shaped your expectations and influenced your decisions. But I want you to notice something important. None of these beliefs were born from love. None of them brought peace. None of them brought healing. None of them drew you closer to hope. They only made your burden heavier. They only made your journey darker. They only made your heart more uncertain. My beloved child, I know the lies you have wrestled with. I know the fears that have followed you. I know the false beliefs that have quietly shaped the way you see yourself. And I know how exhausting it is to carry them, because carrying hidden pain is difficult. But carrying hidden pain while believing you are forgotten, believing you are not enough, and believing nothing will ever change is even harder. And that is why I have brought you to this moment. Not to condemn you for believing those lies, not to shame you for struggling, but to gently help you see what has been influencing your heart for far too long. Because healing often begins with recognition. Light begins to enter when truth finally exposes what fear has been hiding in the shadows. And once those hidden beliefs are brought into the light, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to realize that the way you have been seeing yourself is not the same way I see you. The picture you have carried in your mind is incomplete. It has been shaped by pain, disappointment, fear, and self-doubt. But my child, pain is not a reliable mirror. Fear is not a trustworthy narrator. And the voice of discouragement has never been qualified to define your identity. For so long, you have looked at yourself through the lens of your struggles. You have measured yourself by what did not work out, by the prayers that seemed delayed, by the opportunities that slipped away, by the mistakes you wish you could undo. You have looked at your weaknesses and assumed they told the whole story. But I see something entirely different. Where you see weakness, I see endurance. Where you see failure, I see perseverance. Where you see delay, I see preparation. Where you see scars from difficult seasons, I see evidence that you kept moving forward when it would have been easier to quit. My beloved child, you often focus on what is missing, but I notice what has been growing. You look at how far you still have to go, while I see how far you have already come. You remember every moment you stumbled, but I remember every time you stood back up again. You remember the prayers that have not yet been answered, but I remember the faith that kept you praying even when you did not understand what was happening. There is hidden strength inside you that you rarely acknowledge. Not because you are arrogant, not because you are unaware, but because you have become so familiar with your own struggles that you no longer recognize the courage it took to survive them. The fact that you are still here matters. The fact that you still care matters. The fact that you still long for hope matters. The fact that you are listening even now matters. These are not signs of defeat. They are signs of life. They are signs that my work inside you is not finished. My child, there has been unseen growth taking place in places you cannot measure. Growth does not always happen where people can applaud it. Sometimes growth happens in quiet moments when no one else is watching. It happens when you choose kindness after disappointment. It happens when you keep going despite exhaustion. It happens when you continue believing even after confusion. It happens when you refuse to let bitterness take root in your heart. These victories may seem small to you, but they are not small to me. I see every one of them. You have been looking for dramatic proof that your life is changing, while overlooking the deeper transformation already taking place within you. A tree does not become strong in a single day. Its roots grow long before its branches become visible. In the same way, much of what I have been doing in your life has been happening beneath the surface, quietly, patiently, faithfully. Even during the seasons when you thought nothing was happening at all, there were moments when you believed you were standing still. Yet your character was growing, your compassion was deepening, your understanding was expanding, your ability to trust was being strengthened. My beloved child, I do not see someone forgotten. I do not see someone inadequate. I do not see someone whose best days are behind them. I see someone deeply loved. I see someone learning to endure. I see someone becoming stronger than they realize. I see someone whose story is still unfolding. I see someone who has survived storms that once seemed impossible. I see someone carrying seeds of purpose they have not fully discovered yet. And perhaps the greatest surprise of all is this: the qualities you admire most in others are often the very qualities I have been quietly growing within you. The patience you think you lack, the courage you think you do not possess, the resilience you believe belongs to someone else. They are already taking root inside your heart. That is why my perspective is different from yours. You focus on what remains unfinished. I see what is being formed. You focus on your limitations. I see the strength emerging through them. You focus on the chapters that hurt. I see the story that is still being written. And my child, what I see when I look at you is not a lost cause, not a disappointment, not a failure. I see a beloved child who has grown far more than they know, and who is far more precious than they have dared to believe. And when you begin to see yourself through my eyes, another question often rises from the depths of your heart. If I am loved, why has the journey taken so long? If I have not been forgotten, why have there been so many seasons of waiting? Why does it sometimes feel as though the answers arrive slowly, while the questions arrive quickly? My beloved child, I understand those questions. I understand the ache behind them. Waiting is one of the hardest experiences for the human heart because you live inside time. You feel every day. You count every month. You remember every delay. And when something precious matters deeply to you, every season of waiting can feel longer than it truly is. Yet there is something about the process that is difficult to see while you are standing inside it. A seed does not look impressive when it is first placed into the ground. In fact, from the outside, it may appear as though nothing is happening at all. The soil covers it, the darkness surrounds it, days pass, weeks pass. And anyone looking from above might assume the seed has been forgotten. But beneath the surface, hidden from sight, life has already begun its work. The seed is not being abandoned, it is being prepared. My child, there have been seasons when you felt buried, when life felt dark, when progress seemed invisible. Yet what felt like being buried was often the beginning of deeper growth. What felt like stillness was not the absence of movement. It was preparation happening where human eyes could not see. Roots were forming, strength was developing, foundations were being established. You wanted fruit, but roots came first. You wanted visible change, but hidden growth was necessary. Because what grows quickly without roots often struggles when strong winds arrive. I know there were times when you wished I would move faster. Times when you hoped a single prayer would change everything overnight. Times when you believed one answer would immediately remove every burden. But my child, some blessings require preparation before they can be fully received. Some doors require maturity before they can be walked through wisely. Some dreams require deeper roots before they can support the weight of their fulfillment. That is why growth and waiting are often connected. Not because I enjoy making you wait, not because I delight in your frustration, but because I care about who you are becoming, not only about what you are receiving. Think about the seasons of nature. Spring does not rush into summer. Summer does not force autumn to arrive early. Winter does not remain forever. Each season has a purpose. Each season contributes something necessary. The tree does not panic during winter because it cannot yet see spring. It remains rooted, it remains planted, it remains connected to the source of life beneath the surface. In the same way, there have been seasons in your life that felt like winter, seasons where everything seemed quiet, seasons where you questioned whether growth was still happening, seasons where you felt tempted to believe that nothing was changing. Yet even in those moments, my work continued. Quietly, faithfully, patiently, there were lessons being learned, strength being developed, wisdom being formed, character being refined, not as punishment, but as preparation. My beloved child, the waiting season is not empty space. It is not wasted time. It is not a forgotten chapter. It is a process filled with purpose, even when that purpose is not immediately visible. Many of the qualities you value most cannot be rushed. Trust grows over time. Patience grows over time. Compassion grows over time. Faith grows over time. Just as roots grow beneath the surface long before branches reach toward the sky, much of your growth has been happening where you could not measure it. And that is why I have remained near through every season, through every question, through every delay, through every moment when you wondered whether anything was changing. Because while you were waiting, you were also becoming. While you were hoping, you were also growing. While you were longing for the next chapter, I was preparing you for it. And one day you will look back and realize that the seasons you feared were empty were actually the seasons where some of the deepest roots of your life were quietly taking hold. And perhaps this is where many people miss the beauty of what is happening. They spend so much time looking for changes around them that they fail to notice the transformation taking place within them. They focus on the destination and overlook the person they are becoming along the way. But my child, there is a reason the process matters. There is a reason growth often happens before fulfillment. There is a reason certain seasons seem longer than expected. Because, while circumstances may change in a moment, character is formed over time, and there are things being built inside you that could not have been formed any other way. Think about who you were before some of your hardest seasons began. Think about the questions you had, the fears that controlled your decisions, the things that easily discouraged you, the expectations that shaped your view of success and failure. You may not realize it yet, but many of those things have already begun to change. Not because life became easier, not because every challenge disappeared, but because the journey itself has been shaping you. Wisdom has been growing in places where certainty once lived. There was a time when you believed every answer had to come immediately. There was a time when confusion felt unbearable. But now you have learned something deeper. You have learned that not every question requires an instant answer. You have learned that clarity often arrives step by step. You have learned that life contains mysteries that cannot always be solved in a single day. This is wisdom. And wisdom rarely appears through comfort alone. It often emerges through experience, patience, reflection, and growth. Resilience has also been taking root inside you. You may not use that word to describe yourself. In fact, you may still feel fragile at times. Yet resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to continue moving forward despite it. It is the quiet strength that rises after disappointment. It is the courage to keep showing up when the outcome remains uncertain. It is the decision to keep walking even when the road feels longer than expected. Every difficult season you have endured has strengthened that resilience. Every challenge you survived has added another layer to it. Every obstacle you thought might break you has revealed a strength you did not know existed. Then there is patience, one of the most misunderstood qualities of all. Many people think patience means simply waiting. But true patience is much deeper. It is learning how to remain steady while waiting. It is learning how to trust the process without demanding immediate results. It is learning how to stay present instead of becoming consumed by what has not happened yet. And while patience may feel uncomfortable when it is being developed, it becomes one of the greatest sources of peace later in life. My child, there is another gift quietly growing inside you: compassion. The struggles you have faced have softened parts of your heart. The pain you have experienced has increased your ability to understand the pain of others. The disappointments you have carried have made you gentler toward those carrying disappointments of their own. There are people you will one day encourage because you understand what it feels like to struggle. There are hearts you will one day strengthen because you know what it feels like to be weary. Compassion often grows where suffering once existed, not because suffering is good, but because it can deepen your capacity to care. And as these qualities continue to develop, something remarkable begins to emerge. You become less controlled by fear, less dependent on constant reassurance, less shaken by every unexpected change. You begin to carry a steadiness that comes from experience rather than circumstances. You begin to recognize that your value is not determined by a single success or failure. You begin to understand that growth is not measured only by what happens around you, but by what is being formed within you. My beloved child, you are not the same person you were when this journey began. Even if you cannot fully see it yet, you have changed. Wisdom is growing, resilience is growing, patience is growing, compassion is growing. These are not small things. These are treasures that will remain long after temporary circumstances have passed. And while you have been waiting for certain doors to open, something even more important has been taking place. The person you are becoming has been quietly prepared for the life that lies ahead, day by day, season by season, root by root. Growth has been happening within you, even when you could not yet see its full beauty. And now, my child, after everything you have carried, everything you have questioned, everything you have endured, a quiet invitation stands before you. Not an invitation rooted in pressure, not an invitation built upon fear, not an invitation demanding perfection before you can move forward. It is a gentle invitation, a personal invitation. An invitation that begins with a simple question: what are you still holding that you no longer need to carry? There are burdens that have followed you for so long that they feel like part of your identity. Old disappointments, old fears, old wounds, old regrets. They have traveled with you through seasons of your life until you almost forgot there was another way to live. Yet some of the weight you feel today does not come from the journey itself. It comes from holding things that were never meant to remain in your hands forever. Perhaps it is time to let go of the belief that everything depends on you. Perhaps it is time to release the pressure of trying to control every outcome. Perhaps it is time to stop carrying responsibility for things that were never yours to fix. My child, surrender is not weakness. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is trusting that there is wisdom greater than your understanding. It is releasing your grip on what you cannot control and allowing peace to enter places where fear once lived. There are also people who still occupy space in your heart because of the pain they caused. Some left wounds through rejection, some left wounds through disappointment, some left wounds simply because they failed to be who you hoped they would be. And although the event itself may belong to the past, the weight of it still lingers in the present. That is why I gently invite you toward forgiveness. Not because what happened was acceptable, not because your pain was insignificant, but because unforgiveness keeps tying your heart to wounds that are meant to heal. Forgiveness is not pretending nothing happened. It is choosing freedom over bitterness. It is choosing healing over constant replay. It is choosing to stop allowing yesterday's pain to determine tomorrow's peace. There is another invitation before you as well, the invitation to trust again. I know trust can feel risky after disappointment. I know it can feel safer to expect the worst than to hope for something better. I know there were moments when hope seemed fragile, yet a guarded heart can become a lonely heart. A fearful heart can become an exhausted heart. Trust does not require knowing every answer. Trust simply takes the next step even when the entire path is not visible. It chooses faith over certainty. It chooses courage over endless hesitation. It chooses movement over paralysis. My beloved child, you do not need to solve your entire future today. You do not need to carry every tomorrow on your shoulders. You do not need to figure out every detail before taking a single step forward. What you need is willingness. Willingness to release what has been weighing you down. Willingness to forgive what has been poisoning your peace. Willingness to surrender what has been exhausting your spirit. Willingness to trust that growth is still happening even when you cannot see the full picture. The invitation before you is not complicated. It is simply this. Let go of what keeps pulling you backward. Open your hands to what is ahead. Release what no longer serves your healing. Trust the process that has been shaping you. Allow your heart to become softer than fear and stronger than doubt, because every new chapter begins with a decision. And sometimes the most important decision is not what you will achieve next. It is what you are finally willing to release. When you loosen your grip on fear, peace can enter. When you loosen your grip on bitterness, healing can begin. When you loosen your grip on endless striving, rest can find its way back into your soul. And standing quietly before you now is that invitation. Not demanding, not forcing, simply waiting for your heart to take one gentle step toward freedom. And when your hands begin to loosen their grip on what has been weighing you down, something else quietly begins to emerge. Space. Space for hope to breathe again. Space for possibilities you could not see while fear occupied every corner of your vision. Space for a future that is larger than the limitations of your current circumstances. My child, one of the reasons discouragement feels so heavy is because it convinces you that today is all there will ever be. It narrows your vision until you can see only the struggle directly in front of you. It whispers that nothing will change, nothing will improve, and nothing new can grow from the ground you are standing on. But the future is often unfolding long before it becomes visible. Just as dawn begins before the first light appears on the horizon, many of the things being prepared for your life begin quietly, beyond what your eyes can presently see. That is why I want you to lift your gaze beyond this moment, not to escape reality, but to remember that reality contains more possibilities than fear allows you to imagine. There are chapters of your story that have not yet been written. There are conversations you have not yet had. There are opportunities you have not yet encountered. There are moments of joy you have not yet experienced. There are parts of yourself you have not yet discovered. The road in front of you is not empty simply because it is hidden. A path can exist even when it disappears around a bend. My beloved child, restoration often begins quietly. It does not always arrive with dramatic announcements. Sometimes it begins with renewed strength after a long season of exhaustion. Sometimes it begins with a peaceful heart where anxiety once lived. Sometimes it begins with a new perspective that changes how you see everything around you. Sometimes it begins with courage returning to places that once felt defeated. These small beginnings often become the foundation for larger transformations. Do not underestimate them. A new chapter rarely starts the way people expect. Many imagine that change must arrive suddenly to be meaningful. Yet some of the most beautiful changes happen gradually. One day you notice that a burden no longer feels as heavy. One day you realize a wound no longer controls your thoughts. One day you discover that fear no longer has the same authority it once had over your decisions. One day you find yourself smiling without forcing it. One day you wake up and recognize that something inside you has healed more than you realized. This is how restoration often unfolds, step by step, layer by layer, season by season. There is also the possibility of breakthrough, not necessarily in the way you have imagined, not always according to your timeline, but breakthrough often begins when old limitations lose their power. It begins when you stop defining yourself by your past. It begins when hope becomes stronger than self-doubt. It begins when you believe that growth is still possible and that your story is still moving forward. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough is not a change in circumstances, but a change in perspective that allows you to walk into new opportunities with confidence rather than fear. My child, there are opportunities ahead that cannot be fully seen from where you stand today. New relationships, new understanding, new purpose, new experiences that will strengthen and encourage you. You do not need to know every detail in order to move forward. You do not need a complete map before taking the next step. What matters is remembering that the future is not closed, the story is not finished, the possibilities are not exhausted. There is more ahead than what is behind. There is more growth ahead than what has already happened. There is more beauty waiting to emerge than you can currently imagine. So do not allow present uncertainty to convince you that tomorrow holds nothing new. A new chapter is possible. Restoration is possible. Growth is possible. Opportunity is possible. And while you cannot yet see everything that lies ahead, hope can still walk confidently toward it, trusting that every season has been preparing you for blessings, lessons, and moments of grace that are still waiting beyond the horizon. And now, my beloved child, as this moment gently comes to a close, I do not want you to leave carrying the same weight you carried when you arrived. I do not want you to walk away, believing that your struggles have the final word. I do not want you to forget what has been quietly unfolding within your heart. Instead, I want you to carry something different. I want you to carry peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on circumstances being perfect, not the temporary peace that disappears when life becomes difficult, but the deeper peace that comes from knowing that your story is still in progress, the peace that comes from understanding that growth has been happening even when you could not see it, the peace that comes from realizing that your waiting has not been wasted, your tears have not been meaningless, and your journey has not been forgotten. My child, remember what you have discovered. The burdens you carried were real, but they were never meant to define you. The fears you faced were powerful, but they were never meant to rule you. The false beliefs that whispered into your heart were loud, but they were never the truth about who you are. You are more than your hardest season. You are more than your greatest disappointment. You are more than the mistakes you still remember. You are more than the doubts that sometimes visit your mind. There is strength within you that has been growing through every challenge. There is wisdom within you that has been formed through every question. There is resilience within you that has been shaped through every difficult road. There is compassion within you that has been deepened through every painful experience. These gifts did not appear by accident. They were formed one day at a time, one season at a time, one step at a time. So when tomorrow comes, do not rush to measure your life only by what has changed around you. Pay attention to what has changed within you. Notice the courage that was not there before. Notice the patience that has grown stronger. Notice the hope that continues to rise even after disappointment. Notice the healing that has already begun. Sometimes the most beautiful miracles happen quietly. They happen in the heart before they appear anywhere else. My beloved child, as you continue forward, may your heart be lighter than it was before. May your mind find rest from endless striving. May your soul remember that it does not have to carry every burden alone. May peace settle over the places that once felt anxious. May hope return to the places that once felt empty. May courage rise where fear once stood. And may you walk into each new day with a gentle confidence that growth is still happening, even when you cannot immediately see it. If questions remain, let them rest for now. If uncertainty remains, do not be afraid of it. Not every answer must arrive today. Not every chapter must be understood immediately. Some things become clear only as you continue walking forward. For now, simply breathe, simply rest, simply remember that your life is not standing still. The story is still unfolding. The seeds are still growing. The roots are still deepening. The new chapter is still approaching. And above all, remember this truth and carry it with you wherever you go. The season you are in is not the end of your story. It is only one page in a much greater story that is still being written, and there is more hope ahead of you than you can see today.